over the weekend, this kind of became a bit of a national dealio. Mike Greenberg on ESPN piped up, and he said, quote, I think they missed their window. Talking about the Detroit Lions, by the way. He thinks that it's over for the Lions, and they should tank for the number 1 pick and rebuild and shut it all down. So Mike Greenberg, he didn't say that word for word, but he did say this, quote, I think they missed their window. I think their shot to win the championship was last year. I think they're getting surpassed in their own division. I think Green Bay is now better than them. So that got me to thinking. So, obviously Mike's there in New York, a Jets guy with ESPN. Maybe he doesn't know what the situation is with the Detroit Lions. Maybe he's not familiar with how things work. Maybe he's sitting there, with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, him worrying about running for vice president and those kinds of things with his own, failures as a franchise, as a Jets fan. Mike Greenberg, I would say this to you, my friend. It's obvious and it's apparent that you do not understand how a franchise is constructed. You don't know about great draft picks and having somebody that can analyze the draft and come through draft after draft after draft. You don't know about having a lot of cap space and being set up for the future with short-term deals without a ton of excess that are on the back end of said deals. It's apparent you don't understand how a franchise operates, how a franchise can go from Trey Flowers and Jamie Collins and Jelani Tavai taking up $20 million of your cap to not play. Fast forward to today, where the Detroit Lions are knocking on the door of winning a Super Bowl, of winning the NFC Championship, all of it. You guys, some real cute examples about Josh Allen, the turnover factory, and about Joe Burrow, who is now injured in Cincinnati, and they're going through a bit of injury struggles and stuff like that. And, oh, by the way, they have to get through arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Patrick Mahomes. Those things are not equal, my friend. So it's apparent to me you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the Detroit Lions. You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to Brad Holmes. And you don't know what you're talking about with this franchise as a whole. I would argue, Mike, that there is no franchise in the NFL that is more set up for long-term success with the cap space, the draft resume, and just in general, the culture of a team than the Detroit Lions. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it.
Well said, Neil. And I'm going to harken back to – I'm not going to completely take your take, Broder, word for word, but I thought what you said on Wake Up Woodward was actually very fair, and you also laid the hammer down too, which is I think what this situation calls for. Because if you're Mike Greenberg and you want to say that the NFC Championship game, the way that it ended, was disappointing, that's fine. It's rare to have a 17-point halftime lead in an NFC Championship game and lose. I give you that. And if you want to say that some other NFC North teams, like particularly the Packers, made some moves that might make them better, Jordan Love looks like a good quarterback. I know, Neil, you're pretty high on some of the moves that the Bears have made, and even the Vikings. I like some of the moves
up
that
until
they've made
now,
as well.
which we're going to get into in the next segment.
We will certainly get into it. You can say, and we've all talked about it. It's not going to, at least on paper, the Lions division, the NFC North, is not set up to be the cakewalk that it was last year. All of that is fair. But I think Mike Greenberg kind of misunderstands what Super Bowl window actually means. It doesn't mean that the Detroit Lions are definitely going to win it next year. It doesn't even mean that they're necessarily even going to win their conference or their division, which I think they will win the division for the record. It's about how you're building your team, as Neil Rule said. One of the great things about this offseason, which Brad Holmes, I think, navigated beautifully, by the way, was the only decision that really had to be made was on Jonah Jackson. And I think Brad Holmes made the perfect decision because Jonah Jackson is getting $17 million a year with the Los Angeles Rams, and as much love as I have for Jonah, he was certainly not worth that. What that means is that every single one of Brad Holmes' draft picks, and every single one of them that have all of the 3 draft picks that he knocked out of the park are still on the team and are still under rookie contracts. And it also means that he's been replenishing as decisions have to be made. Obviously, we're going to extend guys like Panay and Amon-Ra, but they're going to be more expensive. You replenish the roster with guys like Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. So that, to me, is indicative of a team that is set up for long-term success. players that are drafted under rookie contracts that are excelling, and that's what the Detroit Lions have right now. So yes, they are certainly in their Super Bowl window, and I think Mike Greenberg just has a very diluted understanding of what Super Bowl window actually means, or he just doesn't understand what the Lions are building, or both. I'd probably say both.
And maybe it's because he just doesn't understand how an NFL franchise works in totality.
Yeah, the Jets.
Because of all those points that we just went through.
Yes.
And look, Mike G in the WoodwardSports.com chat thread. Greeny's just yanking your chain, so it's all good. And Mike, that's why you're not going to see me like act the fool and have a Sam Flannel type meltdown about it, because I'm based in reality. I'm based on knowledge. Somebody just doesn't hand me a sheet of paper and say, hey, say this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I actually, put some thought into it, use some logic,
Sure.
look at some things. I'm weird like that, Flannel. That's how I operate. So, it's one of those people, and look, we're going to see that a lot. It's funny how quick things change, right? In the offseason last year, we were the Lions were the sexy team, right? Like, oh, look out for the Lions. Lions are back. So they build you up to tear you down, and that's the way that it works. And look, I will take the people running the franchise I root for, the Detroit Lions, 100 times out of 100 over pretty much everybody in the NFL. Because this is the reason I'm so in, Flannel, and we've discussed this many times, is because of they are doing things the way you do it to be successful. And the Chiefs, like the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody talks about Mahomes, who's mercurial, no doubt. Mercurial, could be the best quarterback to ever play the game of football. Could be.
Yep.
Could be, very much could be.
Yep.
On his way there. Let's just say it
100%.
like that. Even the Chiefs, through the Mahomes and the $450 million contracts and the Travis Kelce, the highest paid tight end, through all of that, why did they win the Super Bowl the last 2 years? Other than Mahomes, mercurial quarterback, why did they win it?
Guys like Nick Bolton, George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Rashee Rice. I mean, Brent Veach has drafted extraordinarily well. I mean, he's –
And Flannel, you can back that up.
Yeah.
They went and got Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
They had a quarterback. They went and traded up and got him.
And they drafted Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, just for the record. I know that now they're under long-term contracts, but those are also guys that the Chiefs drafted. They've done an extraordinary job over the last few years, and you can even give more examples than I've just given right now. Even a guy like Mike Dana, for example, who was hugely important to this team. The Chiefs are built a phenomenal roster through the draft, and that's what the Lions have done. And here's the thing, too, because we talk about the NFC North, and I want to just get this point out there because we've talked about some of the free agent moves that the Vikings have made, that the Bears have made, that the Packers have made. I would argue that all of them have made some solid to very, very good moves. But I would take Brad Holmes' drafting over Brian Gutekunst for the Packers, who's made some good picks in his own right, over Ryan Poles for the Bears, and I don't even know the Minnesota Vikings GM. My point is that Brad Holmes' drafting, as opposed to when compared to all other NFC North teams, clears all of them by a mile up to this point. And that's one of the reasons why their Super Bowl window, I think they're not only in it, they're going to be in it for a long time because of their ability to keep replenishing their roster through the draft, which, as I said before, as decisions are going to have to be made on guys like, for example, I'll just say Derek Barnes. You bring in a guy like Jack Campbell through your draft a few years later. You bring in other great players like decisions might have to be made someday about Kirby Joseph. I'll just throw his name out there. Or Iffy. I'll do Iffy because he was drafted in 2021, although as of right now I don't think a decision will have to be made. You bring in a guy like Brian Branch a couple of drafts later. That's why their window is open, because Brad Holmes' drafting has been near the top of the NFL, at least in the past few years. It's kind of been Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions. Those have been the top two drafting teams. And they might be the Super Bowl matchup this year. More on that as the season goes along.
No, absolutely. So it is. It's just one of those things, and we're going to see this from time to time, and we see it. I just hate that. I hate that when somebody comes. Like there was no informed take about it. He didn't talk about the Lions structurally. He's like, well, I think Green Bay's better. Better based on what? Like Jordan Love? Like, is that it? I mean, does he have promise? Sure he has promise. Has he been through the battles? No, he has not. And the bottom line was, look, for all this talk about how, quote-unquote, great he is, when it came down to it, he made the mistakes that cost him the game.
That's fair. He also had in his playoff debut, he was great against the Cowboys. And that's also fair. I would say that Jordan Love has been through some battles, but you're also going to have to pay him more. And that's a huge part of the equation as well, because Jordan Love's his almost the entirety of his rookie contract was wasted sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Which, as much as you say Jordan Love had a damn good year, and he did.
Yeah, but to be fair, if I'm going to use Greeny's logic, I think the window has passed the Packers by.
Hey.
Like I think that the Green Bay Packers are not equipped to win a Super. They had their shot. They had the 49ers reeling in their own building, did the Green Bay Packers.
Absolutely.
And Jordan Love couldn't take advantage. So I think if you ask Mike Greenberg, he would say for the Packers, maybe it's time to move on from Jordan Love. Maybe you should assess your situation.
Well, and that's what you get, Mike Greenberg, for not really adding any evidence behind what you were saying. If you would have given a couple examples, I mean, I even said that the Packers, I think they're going to be better, but the Lions are too. So, but it was just the way that he just said shit just to say shit. I think that's another thing that made me the most eyebrow raised about it, is because there's no logic or evidence. It's just, I just think the Packers are better.
Yeah.